Hello, everyone, listeners of Aligned with Your Dharma. I welcome you for this 2024 February um, recording. And I have a wonderful guest today who I am really excited to talk to and get information from him, which is because he's very knowledgeable traditional naturopath. And I have other questions from other women who would like their questions answered as well. So I'm looking forward to talking to Glen, who is a traditional naturopath, whose expertise lies in the areas of supporting natural hormone balancing, supporting gut brain connection, immune support, and supporting natural inflammatory states. He has been in private practice since January of 2001 and has been specifically assisting women just like you in overcoming symptoms of menopause since 2005. He has reviewed more than 7,637 hormone tests results. That is a lot of results in the past 19 plus years. And Glen's passion and compassion is to assist you with balancing your hormones naturally, understanding your underlying hormone triggers, releasing your menopause symptoms, and to help you feel young again. Yay! During his career, Glen had the honor of working alongside Dr. Joseph Mercola from 2004 till 2008. In his years at Dr. Mercola's Wellness Center, he held positions as Chief Nutritionist, EFT therapist, Wellness Director, developer of Nutritional Typing, and also aided in product and program development. Glen is very knowledgeable, and I'm so excited to have him today. And Dr. Joseph Mercola, in his own words, said, Glen worked at my natural health clinic in Chicago for a number of years and consistently provided high quality, compassionate care for our patients. Glen is also currently a national educator for Dr. Mercola on a variety of wellness topics, as well as program and product development. Dr. Johnny Bowden, in his own words, says Glen Depke has the rare gift of a true healer. He's a terrific communicator, a natural public speaker, and he has the one quality that can't be faked. He truly cares. Welcome, Glen. I am so excited.
Aruna, I am as well. And I was like, as you're describing this guy, I was like, I can't wait to hear him.
So welcome, Glen. I'm so
Yeah.
excited, and I'm grateful that you took time from your busy schedule and uh, came here to answer a few questions and share your knowledge. So to kick off, let me ask you, how did you get started? What made you purposely focus on women's health and menopause?
Well, what was interesting is it kind of organically grew. Yeah, because I was working with hormones as just a part of overall health with anybody I worked with, whether that was men, women, young adults, regardless. I was looking at what was going on with the hormonal system. And then also recognizing that when the hormonal system is off, the problem really isn't the hormones. The problem is whatever is triggering the response in the hormonal system. Now, as I was doing that, because just by chance, most of my clients were female, and they were between the ages of 45 and 55. Like that was my most common client that would come into my office. And what I recognized with that is as I was helping them with whatever other health issues they came in with, whether they had different diagnoses or symptoms and such, what was happening is their menopause symptoms were going away. You see, because I bought into the same lies that most women are told, and those lies are that symptoms of menopause are, weight gain, mood swings, hot flashes, sleeplessness, fatigue, brain fog, and that list goes on. And what I finally really came to the understanding of is that those symptoms are not symptoms of menopause. They're symptoms of a deeper underlying problem with the overall hormonal system and the triggers for that. And then it really became my passion because I don't, because I've worked with so many women over the years, it just became my passion because I felt like, women are being lied to, and then women have an expectation of, when they reach around 50, that their life just falls apart. And, I always say, one of the things that I'll verbalize when I'm talking with women, whether you believe in God or Mother Nature or the universe, whatever, that's up to every individual person. Yet, if you believe in God as an example, do you believe that God created a female body to fall apart at 50 and to really never recover? And it doesn't even make any sense. So that's how this all grew organically, and then it's just really been my most significant focus, for a number of years now.
Thank you. Um, this is an interesting question to ask you. How do you define currently success? Has it changed? Has the definition of success has changed over years?
Success with menopause.
Yeah.
Yeah. So success with menopause, because here's the whole thing. This is, such the key point for every woman to understand, is that the only two true symptoms of menopause are you no longer have a monthly cycle and
Mm-hmm.
you cannot conceive children anymore. And that's it. So to me, success is when, if is one of two things. If you're a woman who is still in childbearing years and you address all of this beforehand, and then
Mm-hmm.
when you go through menopause, you go through menopause completely symptom free. You're short of course, you can't have children and you don't have a monthly cycle, which in all sincerity, most women by the time they're 45 to 55 are pretty happy with those two symptoms. And so success is either going into menopause and never having what are known as menopause symptoms, or being in the throes of maybe perimenopause or menopause or postmenopausal, and releasing all those symptoms, releasing the weight, feeling high energy again, sleeping well, eliminating hot flashes, and having your brain working, confidently again. That all of that to me are levels of success, which also entails, it's not just about the hormonal system.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big key components is so important to understand. You have to figure out all the triggers for what's driving the hormonal response in the first place. So it really is, it's a life-changing event for every woman I work with.
Okay. Thank you. And talking along those lines, somebody asked this question. Considering everything that is changing so much, so is the age group for various life-related changes. Has doctors seen now any changes in age group when perimenopause or menopause starts? Like if it used to be 50, it's now early 40, etc. If so, what do they suggest on how to prepare our body or adjust to these changes?
Okay, yeah. And I would even say I've seen that as well. It used
Mm,
to be, because I've been in practice for, 20, you know, 2004. So 23 years I've been in practice. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of changes in those 23 years as well. And yes, I do see incidents of women entering into menopause, potentially a little bit earlier. And but here's a big part of that too, is that if you just, like one of the things that I bring up all the time is, because when you compare like women with menopause and man with andropause, and if you look at like statistically, about 2 million women in America every year enter menopause. And about 75 to 85% of them are symptomatic with these symptoms that we're talking about, which means about 15 to maybe 25% are actually going through menopause as they should. And the bigger thing though, when we think of like the differences with, so many more women suffer with symptoms of menopause and men do suffer with symptoms of andropause. And to me, that's a simple understanding as to why, because, and I might be one of the few men that you'll hear say this, is that it's really because men have it way too easy.
mm,
We really do, because, as I've been working with women through all these years, what I recognize is most women, they take care of their children, they take care of their husband or their significant other, they take care of their house, very often they're involved in their church or their community. Oh, and they work a full-time job too. So it's really not even fair. And from that perspective, what happens is most women, the 30 years prior to entering menopause, they've spent those 3 decades overworked, overwhelmed, and overstressed. And that kind of throws off the system. It throws off the natural balance in their hormonal system. And on top of that, if we look at food sources and with chemicals in different products, there's also a lot of xenon estrogens that women and people in general are exposed to, and all these things are really throwing off that hormonal balance. So you take into account the fact that most women are have been under way too much stress and overwhelm for a long period of time, and what's gone on with our food sources and our environment. It's definitely been changing what's going on.
Thank you. So if when they have questions as to what this person's second question, if so, what do they suggest on how to prepare our body and adjust to these changes? What would you suggest?
Yeah, it's it really is a simple process, believe it or not, and it is a simple 3-step process. I mean, simple for me because I've been doing it with women for over 19 years. Maybe not simple to just figure out on your own. And what really has to happen is you have to, number one, you have to balance what is referred to as your fundamentals of health. You have to do the simple, healthy things that you need to do every day. Number two, you want to very comprehensively and properly test what's going on hormonally. And I'll first say what that is not. That is not doing a blood test and looking at estradiol and progesterone and testosterone, because it's very incomplete. And when you look at blood, you're only seeing the hormonal response in the blood in that moment. You're not seeing cycles through the day. You're not seeing what might potentially be built up in the tissue. So you really want to do this comprehensively and through a 24-hour period. And then once you understand what's going on hormonally, because the reality is when I'm looking at hormones, I'm looking at literally 32 different hormones. I'm looking at how two different ends of your liver function affect estrogen specifically. I look at how your kidneys are affecting this. I'm looking at the inflammatory states, the chronic disease states, which are tied into gut health, like all these different little pieces of the puzzle. And then from there, you can start to really naturally balance your hormones. And the key with this with me, where, and I'm not going to say that I do it right and everybody else does it wrong. I'm just going to say I do it different. Whereas most people, when you think of hormones and hormone replacement therapy, that means you go on things like progesterone and estradiol and sometimes testosterone. And the problem with that, a lot of women are being recommended to use creams for this or patches, and not everybody absorbs very well vascularly. So, if you're using a cream or a patch, you're dependent on that going through the skin and then making it into your blood, because your blood is where the hormones need to be. Because your blood is you're basically a slow-moving delivery system for your hormones, which are basically communicators. So the challenge with that is if it doesn't make it in the blood, those hormones could be building up in your tissue. And I've seen that with women, where they're taking estradiol creams and they're getting blood tests with their doctor and they're not really seeing levels go up. So they're recommended to take more and more, yet it's just building up in their tissue. And then we look at a 24-hour urine collection and we could recognize that there's a severe estrogen dominance, which is then actually a risk factor for breast cancer. So you want to look at it from the perspective from the hormonal system, rather than things like progesterone and estrogen and testosterone, which is almost a trap on a level, because sometimes there's a symptom care in that. So if you're using that and it is getting into your blood, you might feel better and some of the symptoms may go away, except it's still not fixing the system. So you want to fix the system. And then the third step is always understanding what drove the hormonal imbalance in the first place. Most people think about their hormonal system and they think of, like stress being a trigger, which is true. And Other triggers for your hormonal system could be tied into infections in your gut or elsewhere in
Mm.
your body. It could be foods that you're sensitive to that you're unaware of. It could be toxicity in your body. It could be really anything that's driving this inflammatory and overall hormonal response. So that's a 3 steps. And when you can actually really dive deep and look at and understand these 3 steps, that's your opportunity to recover. That's your opportunity to, again, feel young again.
Wow. So let me recap. That is a lot of information. And 20, let's see, 24 years of wisdom. So you are saying the simple 3-step process is balance your hormones like fundamentals. And then the second one is comprehensively do the blood test through 24-hour period. And then the third one is understanding what drove hormone imbalance.
Yes, and the only thing that I'll mention is it's the testing is I always do a 24-hour urine collection rather than blood.
Okay.
But yeah, that's right on.
Okay. Urine collection. Perfect. The other question, I know you were talking about the estrogen. So this person asks, um, my main question would be, how do we care for our estrogen levels as it drops during this period? And what do we do for cardiovascular care?
Okay, yeah, great question. And always the misconception that all of a sudden you're going to be low in estrogen. Yeah, so when a woman goes from childbearing years to perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopausal, what happens is the ovaries are no longer maintaining the same level of estrogen production that you had when you were in childbearing years, and really because you can no longer have children and you're not going to have a cycle. Yet your body, this is what's really cool. The every female's body is already created and or designed or has evolved, however you want to look at it, to when you go through that transition, there's something deeper, and it's tied into how your brain, your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenal glands work together. And when that system is working well, your body still maintains the balance of estrogens naturally through that system. Because again, you don't have to have the same production of estrogens and progesterone because you can't have children anymore. You're not going to have a cycle, yet your body still is 100% capable of maintaining that balance. So, and then really taking another step further from the cardiovascular perspective, which, very often when women go through menopause and that system, that brain, the HPA axis aren't working well, there are cardiovascular risks because the body cannot naturally maintain the estrogen levels. And what's important with that is it goes back into usually 2 things. Is number one, you just have to support the hormonal system at the core, not with estrogens. Estrogens
Mm,
are down the path of like really down one path. Estrogens are the last hormone conversion. So it doesn't really fix the system. So you want to fix the system, which then allows your body to naturally produce the estrogens. And then on top of that, and this is looked at in the testing that I use, you're looking at also liver function on 2 different levels, because there's a part of your liver that ties a direct role in metabolism of estrogens and something called the hydroxylation of estrogens. And very often what I see is that women have these challenges where their liver is congested, and then the liver isn't metabolizing estrogens well, and the hydroxylation of that is not going well either. And then some of the problems there is, sometimes women end up with estrogen levels where, there might be levels of estrogens that are now carcinogenic, which could be cancer causing, or there could be levels of estrogen that are directly affecting what's going on with your bone and skeletal health. Yeah,
mm,
so it really just comes down to, balancing that naturally. And the interesting part from the cardiovascular aspect, because a lot of people think that, well, what I'm going to recommend is you get into this really intense cardiovascular work. And very often I'm not, because, you do want to move your body, because movement of your body is essential for your autonomic nervous system, which regulates everything.
mhm.
Yet when there's a deep problem in this hormonal system, sometimes the cardiovascular exercise can worsen the hormone problem. Yeah, so very often I'm recommending more anaerobic activity, whether it be, things like, weight training, with heavier weights and less reps, or, walking, or doing things like stretching or Pilates or yoga, different things that aren't going to push that heart rate up, because pushing the heart rate up could actually make the hormonal system struggle a bit more.
Mm, thank you. Um, I can totally resonate to that because um, the it's not the patch, it was the pellets that I was taking for
Uh-huh.
to balance the hormones, and that caused additional issues. So then when I came to you, the words you said definitely calmed me. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not in big trouble. This can be reversible. So I appreciate you. So yeah, I can totally understand when you talked about how it affects your liver function, liver congestion, and then um, and what I realized was working with you, you do it much more comprehensively. You look at it from all the different angles. Not everybody does that. So when you said you do it differently, I do I do understand that since I worked with you. So going along that, what is the greatest challenge, either working with women or working with men? Um, Regarding the hormones, what is the greatest challenge that you had to overcome, and what did you gain by overcoming it?
Well, even for myself, I'm one of these people who I walk my talk, right?
Mm,
And even as an example, it was about a year ago, I wasn't feeling as fantastic as I normally do. I noticed I was gaining a little bit more weight around the midsection. I felt a little inflamed. I was, I didn't have the same level of motivation. So, yeah, and I really thought that, it's probably something that I'm eating and I wasn't aware of. And so the first thing I did is I tested myself for food sensitivity and found that I had a lot of sensitivities to foods that I wasn't aware of, right? Because 86% of the people who have food sensitivities, you're asymptomatic. So it's not like you eat the food and you feel terrible. Yet you
mm,
can eat the food and it's driving this low level inflammatory response in your gut. So then when I did that test and I recognized that, well, because of, I know what I'm doing with all this, I recognize that, well, if you're going to have food sensitivities, that's usually driven by infections in the gut. So I did a stool test to understand what those infections were, and I had multiple infections in my gut. So I had to work on fixing that. And once I knew that I had the problem with, both the food sensitivities and the problems in my gut, I knew my hormones would be out of balance. And I tested my hormones just as I would with any woman or any of my clients. And it was interesting because my testosterone was really low. One of my estrogens was actually really high. And and I definitely had some issues with one of the pathways in my hormonal system. So it was, to me, that was very just enlightening, because I was able to use something to stop my body from converting testosterone and estrogen, and I was able to use the proper recommendations to help support that one end of my hormonal system. So in essence, what I did is the same thing I would do with clients: is I eliminated the foods I was sensitive to. I took care of what was going on in the gut. I worked on supporting my hormonal system. And then it was about 4 months later, I retested, and lo and behold, my testosterone was in normal levels, and I no longer had elevated estradiol, specifically, is what I was looking at. And it's just one of those things where just most people don't know
mm-hmm,
what's going on. So that maybe is one of the biggest problems, is that, because again, as mentioned, women are told they should, gain 25 pounds, and they should have hot flashes, and they should have sleeplessness and brain fog and all of this. So they think that should happen. So the problem is, but that's why I really focus on education, Yeah, because the problem is most don't know that that's not really what's going on, and those really aren't even menopause symptoms. Yeah, so I would say then from that standpoint, the bigger problem is just a lack of education. But then that's my passion. Yeah, I can't scream from a mountaintop high enough, to all women in this world that they have way more control over what goes on hormonally than they think they have.
Beautiful. So the only two symptoms are they won't have their monthly cycles and they won't be able to conceive once they are in menopause. That is the only true symptoms.
That's
Okay.
it. That's it. And it was like, and as an example, it was so funny, Aruna. One time I was doing a Zoom training on menopause, and I didn't even there was somebody on the Zoom training that was a woman that I had already worked with in the past, and I there were so many people on the training, I didn't even know she was on it. But then when we got to the end where there was Q&A, this woman actually came on. She unmuted herself and she showed her video, and she told every other woman, she says, I just want everybody to know I worked with Glen before. She says, I'm 52 years old. I've never had any of those supposed menopause symptoms. And she said, because I worked with Glen prior to entering menopause. So when I went into menopause, I went through it completely symptom free. And, to me, that's the dream. The dream is for women to enter it and go through it and really be symptom free, short of the two that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And and even from that, if you do have symptoms, recognizing that unless you're dead,
Mm.
you can recover from this, right? And obviously, I'm not working with dead people, right?
Okay. Okay, okay. So, um, how can people reach out to you, Glenn?
Yeah, so people can either text or call my office at 949-954-6225, or they can email me at Glen with one N, so Glen at Depke, Depke wellness.com. So either of those ways would be a way for us to connect and really understand, what's potentially going on and how we can work together, and you can really change your hormones and change your life.
Change your hormones and change your life. Beautiful. What words do you live by, Glenn?
Well, for me,
Yeah.
my and I know you know this, my number one value in life is fun. Yeah, so everything that I do is tied into fun, whether it be, like for me, it is so much fun working with women in menopause because, honestly, women are typically more focused on preventive care, and they want to do things to prevent, and also women are really typically very good at like multitasking. So they're usually very good at following directions and protocols and such. And the other thing too, what is the most fun thing about working with women is they're so appreciative.
Mm.
If it, when I help a woman, escape, these symptoms that they think are menopause, it is just such a fun thing for them and such a fun thing for me. And I really live my life through that. Whether it be things I'm doing personally or in business, everything is really just tied into fun for me.
And I can attest to that because I was very nervous. And you eased my nervousness. And you're like, Aruna, you gave me all the positive things first. It's like, Aruna, this is where you're at. And, I can help you get to this level. So I appreciate you for bringing that calmness. and I was like, okay, I can
Oh,
have fun.
thank you.
It is not the end of the end of the world. So I can have fun and do enjoy things that I feel like it's fun for me. So yeah, I can. I appreciate you for sharing that.
Hmm.
And anything else that I missed that you would want to add?
Yeah, I think just the main things is I want every woman to understand that you have far more control over what goes on with is known as menopause than you may think. And there is a process that you can go through to change that. And it and through all of my years, through 19 plus years of working with women with menopause, to be really candid, I've recommended estrogen maybe 5 times and progesterone maybe 6, and only in the most extreme needs and cases. I usually don't have to even recommend the use of
Mm.
what is normally used, because again, we're working more at the core to fix the system rather than trying to address your symptoms, and that's what empowers you as a woman to once more feel young again.
Work at the core to address the symptoms rather than just surface level. Beautiful. Um, Thank you so much, Glenn, for taking time. Again, I know you are a very busy person and you are teaching, and you are an author as well. And can people get to your, how can they get your book?
Oh, well, you know what we could do? We didn't talk about this, Aruna, yet. I can email you a link to where, the women that are enjoying this video, they can click on that link and get the PDF of my book, which is called Fat, Fatigued, and Frustrated, which is a really great action step guide to start moving forward. And it's one of the steps that moves into, then, of course, that's the fundamentals, but you still have to really test what's going on hormonally and get to the triggers. And yet it's a nice start for most women. And I'll provide you a link for that as well.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Yeah, and for the listeners, I do have the book, and it's wonderful information. And I had the privilege to work with Glenn to ease that nervousness and to progress forward with confidence, and not feeling frustrated and enjoying the life like how we want to enjoy. So I appreciate you, Glenn, for taking the time. And I know you are going to teach in a few minutes. So again, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
enlightening us with all this information and empowering all the women out there that they can do this. And only 2 symptoms are, again, in Glenn's words, the women who are going through menopause, they won't have to experience the monthly cycle and they won't be able to conceive, but those are the only 2 symptoms. Thank you, Glenn.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you. Have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.